Purpose of today's call is to discuss a problem that many of us have, and I'm guessing that everybody who's logged into the webinar has this problem, getting an understanding and a scope of PSTs in their organization, what methods exist for locating, getting rid of them, managing them, etc. So with that being said, myself, Jim Canfield, I'm the Director of Online Services here at Champion, and Ken Hughes, who's Director of Engineering Services at Barracuda. We're here to review the solution, review what we've done, talk about some of the competition, including ours, the MessageOps, when and what solution you should use. And during this presentation, you will be able to ask questions through the chat window. We will be responding to them, as well as at the end of the presentation, we will open it up for Q&A. So with that being said, the agenda for today's presentation is a little bit of overview, welcome, who is Champion, who is Barracuda, overview of the solution, what it does, how it can help you maintain or get to a point of compliance, etc. Near the end, we will show you a little bit about how the solution works, as well as open it up for Q&A. So with that being said, a little bit about Champion. Champion's been around since 1979. We also have an online division called MessageOps. MessageOps has been in the Microsoft Online BPOS Office 365 business for the last 6 years. And in that time, we have helped move north of 3 million mailboxes to Office 365. We're currently partner of record for a little over 2 million mailboxes. We partner with the majors, IBM, Hewlett-Packard, as well as, of course, Microsoft, Barracuda, and a few other players. Again, we've been around since 1979. We're a $100 million firm. A little bit about Barracuda. We've all heard the cool commercials. A lot of you all are probably or possibly using Barracuda solutions for spam, malware, archiving, etc. Just a couple of neat facts about Barracuda. Obviously, they're publicly traded, 225,000 plus clients around the world, and they do some things that you may be surprised about, including telephony, IP telephony, the PST enterprise solution that we're going to talk about today. And we find them as a partner, a great company to do business with. And for those of you that do business with, I'm guessing you've probably had a similar experience. So with that, we're going to get kicked off. A couple of what I would consider to be dramatic numbers. Okay, if you look at email traffic and how email is growing globally, the numbers are rather staggering. Okay, and personally, when I look at numbers like 190 billion emails or 130 billion emails or whatever, I don't understand the scope of that. But bottom line is that more and more of our communication is being done electronically, email, etc. Email, instant messaging, whatever. And the numbers that you're looking at were put together by the Barracuda group, who does most of the email consulting, etc. for Microsoft and others. They're considered one of the primary go-tos for email traffic. So why is this number important? The reason these numbers are important is as our organizations grow, as compliance becomes more and more of an issue, we have to look at how do we appropriately protect our organizations, both from a compliance perspective and from a intellectual property perspective, and finally, to make sure that we're doing what's right both for our clients as well as for our employees. We need to get a handle on this electronic communication. And there's been many solutions around for many years, and many people are doing Enterprise Vault and 100 other solutions that are out there. But today and in the future, email is growing exponentially. Email maintenance is always a challenge, and figuring out what to do with this email over a longer period of time is a challenge. So what I did is I took a look at an example of how mail storage, mail quantity grows, and I just took it on a basic 500 user company. Everything is based on standards, okay? There's nothing here that's wacky. There's nothing here that's me making stuff up. This is all based on what are considered industry averages. So in a company with about 500 employees, average email sent / received per day is 122. The last day I sent or received 122 emails was a great day. My number's significantly higher, but if you look at the email traffic and the amount of data based on averages, average email size of 100K, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 gigabytes of in or out email daily. When you look at that over a year, you're up around 3 terabytes. And if your organization has a compliance-based email retention, if you guys have a need to maintain mail for a long period of time, either, again, by government regulation or by your own organization, you're looking at adding 21 terabytes of stuff based on averages over the next 7 years, and that's not an insignificant amount of storage, and it costs money. So that's what we're doing. So in your typical email environment, obviously you've got your mail server, okay? Whether you're an Exchange server, whether you're a whoever server, an SMTP POP, you probably have a significant number of users who are using Outlook, okay? And in the past, when an email box hit a certain size, many organizations would allow the creation of an archive, PST, okay? PSTs would be saved on C:\user drives. They would be saved on file server shares. They'd be put on USB sticks for all I know, okay? And it was interesting. We did some storage assessments for some clients over the last few months, okay? And we scanned upwards of 150 terabytes worth of SAN disk. And across the clients, anywhere from 5 to 25% of their SAN disk, expensive disk, was being taken up by PSTs, okay? And I know you guys can read. I'm not here to read the slideshow to you, but when you look at the details and you think the average last touch is over 3 months, PSTs sitting on shared storage is not supported by Microsoft, and the reality is most organizations, most users don't move their PSTs to servers, okay? But a significant percentage, what that exact number is, I can't tell you because nobody really knows, but much of that PST data is sitting on a C drive, and who knows where it is. So if you look at 5 to 25% of 150 terabytes, that's real storage. And if you look at that and then you think, how much PST is sitting out on workstations? How much is sitting out God knows where, okay? These are tough questions, okay? And if you're in a position, God forbid you're in a position to do any type of e-discovery and have to be able to prove it legally, you have some serious challenges in front of you. So hence the PST eradication, okay? Now, PSTs, okay, for those of you that have used them, for those of you that I'm sure everybody has used them on the phone, but PSTs have some issues, okay? They're big, okay? They're difficult to find. They get damaged reasonably easy. They get lost or disconnected from Outlook profiles, okay? They're difficult to locate and search. They're difficult to locate, search, and back up. And then, of course, they're difficult to manage access to them such that as an organization you can prove that you have all of the data that may reference a subject that you're doing a search on. So we, trying to be cute, we did the 7 sins of PSTs, okay? But at the end of the day, the reality is it's just very difficult, if not impossible, to control PSTs, okay? They're easily damaged, tough to back up, etc. So moving ahead. All right, we know what a PST is. What's not next? Great. 1, let's locate PSTs, okay? Have multiple ways to do this. Do storage assessments where I have the ability to look across multiple volumes and come back with the list and say, here's the 1,000 PSTs or the 10,000 PSTs I found in these directories. But typically in the storage assessment, I'm not going to be pulling local C drive or D drive or, God forbid, disconnected storage. 2, once I find them, determine the ownership, the data that's in them, and what what should I do with it? Okay? Okay, so we've overcome figuring out where all the PSTs are. Okay, now what? All right, well, let's move all these PSTs to a central storage repository, and then we'll deal with them from there. Okay, it's a difficult task. It's very time-consuming, and it's something that will fall to the bottom of your to-do list quickly because it's annoying, painful, and there's very little value to the organization from a long-term perspective. It's more of a, we need to do this because we need to make sure that we know where all the data is, and there's great value in that, but a CEO not being able to do something typically comes above that list. So now, migrate, move it, ingest it, whatever, okay? Then what do we do after we figure out where it is, determine what we want to do with it, then let's make it go away, okay? Let's eradicate it. PSTs connect to Outlook, okay? Do we want to leave them in Outlook? Do we want to migrate them to Exchange on-premise? Do we want to move them to Office 365? Do we want to move them to an email archive or whatever, okay? Great. Then we want to stop them from being able to be created. There are multiple ways to do that through global policies, etc., but we want to do that as well. And the last thing we want to do is when we're starting to remove PSTs is to interfere with our users' day-to-day operations. So the next time they open Outlook, they get an error that, hey, I can't find this file, etc. It's not a problem. It's just a problem because it interferes or changes what a user is used to doing. God forbid we do that. We don't want to do that. So when we look at that, we have to determine what our strategies for PST management should be. One, do I want to move them to, once I locate them, do I want to move them to an on-premise Exchange server, whether the primary account or server-side archive, or based on date, time, ownership, primary or archive, okay? Do I want to move them to my current investments in email archiving? Barracuda Archiver. There are other solutions that are out there as well. Or do I want to migrate them, move them to Office 365? Am I using Office 365? Am I interested in moving it to the server-side archive in Office 365 or Exchange Online Protection, etc.? Okay? Two, sorry, I erred. I have an error in my in my presentation. I forgot double one, so I apologize for that. Two, move all the PSTs to a central location. This is a valid strategy, okay, for long-term backup and management. Downside to that is every time you open a 1 gig PST file, you have to back up the whole thing. There's no byte level changes. It's very difficult, okay, and it's also against Microsoft best practices. Move the PST data into journaling solutions or archiving solutions, whether on-premise or in the cloud, okay. My favorite solution, find them all, delete them. Most organizations aren't willing to do that, but what we try to do is to marry two solutions. One, define where they are and determine what we want to do with them. And then before we take and start migrating the 10 petabytes of stuff up to wherever we want it to go, we want to take a look and get some G2 as to the data that's actually within the PSTs, okay, for multiple reasons, okay. I have PST data that's from 1998, okay. I don't need to maintain it. As a matter of fact, it's against my written or my organizational email compliance policy, okay. These people haven't worked for the organization for 12 months or more. Again, it's against the email compliance policy to maintain this stuff. The point of an email compliance policy isn't just to say we're going to keep all this stuff forever. As important, possibly more important side of that compliance policy is when do we get rid of stuff such that we're protecting the organization from having to provide access to anything from anyone, from anywhere. This is our written email retention policy, and this is what we manage everything to. Okay, so email compliance policies, at the front end often look difficult for IT, but realistically, if you look at them from both sides of the coin, you're also putting an end date to where you have to be and how you have to prove it. So it's something that's very important to private organizations as well as public or governmental, etc., that they should have a strict email retention policy to protect themselves. So solutions, okay? We're talking about PST Enterprise from Barracuda today. There are several other solutions that are out there. They're some of the most popular that are available. Microsoft has a piece of software called PST Capture. PST Capture is an agent-based solution that you run through GPO, and it'll go out. It'll find PSTs on devices. It then allows you to migrate, replicate, move the PSTs to a central point, and then in a serial fashion upload those PSTs to Exchange On-Prem, Office 365, or wherever you want them to go. Okay, it's free. Okay, the challenge is it's an agent solution. Two, in my experience, it has its interesting capabilities, but at the end of the day, it works reasonably well. Okay, downside to it is you are on a serial replication, which means if you, you're going to get about 500 megabytes an hour of throughput moving the PST data to wherever you want it to go, and it does one PST at a time, so the process can take a while. Okay, it is a reasonably new solution from Microsoft. Okay, it has some unique requirements. Specifically, as you can see, and I know you all can read, it only supports Exchange 2010 or later. Okay, requires port 6674 if you're going off-prem, etc. Now, the third solution is Exchange Migrator. Exchange Migrator is owned by a company called MessageOps. You might see the logo in the upper right-hand corner of the presentation. It's ours. We built it. It's the most popular piece of software that we sell. Okay, Exchange Migrator allows for me to open a PST and migrate it directly to the primary or the archive side of Office 365 or to Exchange on-premise. Okay, it's a phenomenal solution. It starts from $100 and it goes up to a couple $1,000 depending on the numbers of users that you have. Now, similar to PST Capture, it is a serial solution. In other words, I built a CSV. That CSV will have the name of the PST source. It will have the target, and it will tell me, do you want to send it to the archive or the primary account? I hit go. Okay, it does file 1, finishes file 2, finishes file 3, etc. Okay, now with Exchange Migrator, I have the ability to set up multiple Exchange Migrator workstations. It runs on Windows 7, Windows 8, a couple of gigs of RAM, runs 32-bit Outlook, and it works. Okay, in the event that there's a crash during a migration, okay, it will start up where it crashed. Okay, PST Capture starts back at the beginning of the file it was on. Now, finally, the third solution, PST Enterprise. PST Enterprise is an agentless solution. You get it out to the end users. It runs and connects to a web server, an IIS server that we put together on a client site. It then, utility through GPO, runs. Okay, it's a TSR, starts, stops, reconnects, etc. It then discovers all of the PSTs that the end user who runs the script, the GPO, has access to in a C drive, D drive, F drive, Z drive, whatever. Okay, identifies them and delivers the data back to the IIS server. Okay, it supports all versions of Exchange since 2003. Okay, it also gives us the ability to open and process password-protected PSTs, which can be, frankly, very annoying. It helps us to identify ownership, okay, for orphan PSTs, and determine what we're going to do with it. I'll show you this as we go along. Now, pricing starts at about $10 per user, okay, and that allows for you to migrate a user's worth of PSTs, whatever PSTs, assign them to that user, And you can do it one of two ways. You buy it, you use it, the license lasts for 12 months, or you can buy it such that you pay maintenance on it. It's about $2 a user per year. So if it's something that you're going to need long term, you can do that as well. So there are other solutions out there. These are the ones that I run across most of the time. Okay, PST capture I run across a lot. A lot of people, including myself, have tried to implement it on multiple occasions and had some interesting challenges. If it's something you look at or if it's something you're trying, please read the README file, because there are a significant number of oh by the ways that you should be aware of. Okay, the MessageOps solution works great. You need to know where all the PSTs are. If you do, and for a small company, PST Exchange Migrator can be used by individual users. It can also be used by administrators. Okay, it's a good tool. For enterprises, larger organizations, we're talking about distributed organizations, a couple hundred users, and we have a need to get this stuff under control and make it go away. The only solution I've ever seen that does it very well is the PST. So how it works, okay? We're going to spend a lot of time on this slide. We're coming up to the Q&A section. I've run through the slideshow a little bit faster than I expected, but worst case is we give you a few more minutes back to your day. So we set up an IIS server in your environment, okay, nothing special. We then create a very simple TSR login script. It runs against all the workstations. For devices that might not be domain joined, you literally can send out an email to end users and say, here, double click on this, run it. It will search. It will then deliver the data to the web server. Okay, the screen you're seeing is nothing more than a screenshot of the data that's discovered. Tells me where the data is, the size of the files that have been found. It then allows me to assign different policies, etc. Now, something that's very cool is when it finds PSTs, orphaned or otherwise, okay, it looks at the data, it looks at the metadata, and it makes an guesstimate as to who the owner is. And it compares that to the users in your global address list, in your Active Directory and your global address list. So it finds this PST that hasn't been opened since 1933, but it sees an email sent from kvogel@championsg.com or other ways of identifying the ownership of that file. It will then come up and say, we are 75% sure, 95% sure that this file originally belonged to this person. And then, of course, as you can see on the screen, you've got your assigned PSTs. These are the ones that, based on belief, it knows who owns it. You say, okay. It will also typically show unassigned PSTs. We're not sure who owns these, okay? And I'm not going to read all of the tabs, but the point is that it helps us to understand the PSTs, the size, the scope, where they're at, and then it helps us to develop a policy of what to do with them, okay? And next step, okay, is to create policies, okay? Policies being, what do we do with it? How old? What email do we want to keep? Where do we want to move it to? What do we want to do with the PSTs after we've migrated them? Okay, do we want to disconnect them gracefully from Outlook? Excuse me. And it allows you to, of course, create policies that can be applied to line of business groups or whatever. There's multiple ways to do it. Okay, and then, and here is the #1 differentiator between PST Enterprise and every other solution that I've worked with trying to do this, okay, is when you prosecute, okay, when you develop the policies, what am I going to do with it? You have full capability, age, size, exclusions, etc., what to do at the end, okay, and then I hit go, okay. It allows me to set the start time and stop time. And that's important. The start time for a policy. So at 6 p.m. tonight, I want to start this policy against these 50 PSTs or 500 PSTs or users. Okay. Tomorrow morning at 0600, okay, I want to slow it down or stop it. Okay, because I don't want to be interfering with my internet access if I'm moving it off premise, or PSTs are big monsters and they're pretty chatty. So you may want to slow it down or stop it, okay? But the point is, and the most important thing is, if I do 50 users or 500 users, it doesn't matter, and I apply the policy and I say go. I've said this multiple times on this call and I'm repeating myself again. PST Enterprise does not replicate the PST data or move the PST data serially. It distributes the workload. So the TSR that I talk about when it's running on a workstation, okay, that workstation, okay, replicates the data directly to the target. Instead of having it run off of one central migration station, it distributes the load to those 50 or 500 or however many PCs that are out there, and then your typical PST throughput you're going to get, it's typically about 500 megs an hour. It's about the best you're going to do, maybe a little faster, a little slower, but at the end of the day, that's what you're going to end up with, okay? You can multiply that by the number of devices that you want to use as migration stations. So it will finish a PST migration of 1 or 2 or 22 terabytes, God knows how much faster than it would if you were held hostage to the serial. And even if you're going to set up 5 migration stations or 10 migration stations, etc., you then have to create them, you have to create scripts, you have to run it, you have to monitor it, you have to manage it, hopefully not restart it, etc. And whether that's using the MessageOps tool, whether that's using other PST import tools that are out there that, again, they all work serially, whether you're using the Microsoft tool, those are the types of limitations that you have to deal with. And for a company with 50 users, okay, moving 50 PSTs or 100 PSTs for all of your current employees, and more importantly, all of the people that don't work there anymore, and determining what to do with them, okay, it's a big job, okay, but a halfway decent admin can get it done in a week or 2, okay? But when you talk about 500 or 5,000, okay, and when you go back to the slide that I showed you where we're generating upwards of 20 terabytes of mail for a 500 user company over the next 7 years, that assumes nobody ever leaves the company or they never hire anybody new. So it can easily get out of control, and management of PSTs has been, continues to be a difficult challenge for IT organizations to maintain. So that is, at the end of the day, the purpose of today's presentation. Ran through it in about 30 minutes. I don't know if there have been any questions. I believe Ken's probably been responding to them. But with that, I am going to unmute you all. Or actually, if I could, go ahead and raise your hand in the window. It will show me that you're looking for a question or looking to ask a question, and I will unmute you. So I believe our first question is from Alicia Dubray, and if I did bad on your name, I apologize. So Alicia, are you out there?
Hang on, I got it. I'm here.
Hello. I see that your question actually was, I was talking when I unmute, so you were making fun of me earlier in the call. So did you have any other questions?
Do you have any questions about this? I know I dragged you in towards the last. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you.
You don't. Not really. Yeah, we were just discussing. I have one of my techs in the room. We're embarking on how to grab the PSTs from the users. Is there a way to slice it up by machine name?
Yes, yes, and actually.
Or what about IP ranges?
You have the ability to identify the PST's source, where they're coming from. Ken, do you want to? I don't know if you want to jump in, but the slideshow or the screen that I just brought up, which is showing basically a screenshot here, it's basically showing me where the PSTs are coming from, whether it's an F drive, a C drive, or a D drive, and it will identify the owner or the user who located it. And if you need to create separate search policies looking for just a specific OU or line of business or whatever, yes, you do have that capability.
I was talking more about your end part of your presentation where you were saying about bringing in the PSTs. And
okay.
the monitor stations. That's where I grabbed my tech who shares the office with me. So is there a way we can set up the grab of the PSTs by machine name or IP addresses? Because we're a regional company, so our challenges, of course, come down to mileage and the data path and what we can afford from CenturyLink.
Okay. And you would like to... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Jim, shall I pick this one up?
Please. By the way, that's Mr. Barracuda who's speaking to you from London, England today. So he's
Okay.
Hi, yeah, great question. So, and it's a question that we often get asked. So, what normally would happen is you would run the client script and the zero footprint client on all your workstations. That reports back to the central server exactly which machine the PST was found on. So it sounds like you want to split your migration and choose everybody in, Office 1 and migrate them all at the same time. So what you would do is you can just filter that list and say it also integrates to Active Directory, right? So if you've got the person's, the owner's office details in our Active Directory or the department or something like that, you can look at that and say, right, everybody in the finance department, I want to migrate between this date and this date. And everybody in engineering, I want to do in this other date, between these times.
Oh, okay. Okay. And
That's
then
all possible.
With the computer setup, you were talking about a client being on site there instead. Would that be the best way to do that? Like we would have an engine on the different location sites?
Yeah, when I'm talking about the client, it's the login script and associated TSR. So it purely runs in memory. There's no install required. There's no kind of client workstation there. There's no specific server there in the individual office. It just runs on your end user's workstation when they're running Outlook or whatever they're running on there.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Do you have anything?
Not right now. No, not right now. It's not a better idea of how the whole process.
Yeah, we're still in planning.
Yeah, I'm not really. I don't know.
Okay, great.
Next question was from Joe Messina. I'm assuming it was just because he was making fun of me because he couldn't hear me. Joe, did you have any questions? I've unmuted you out there, sir.
No, that was it. I just couldn't hear you at the beginning, but thanks for the
Okay, sir. Thank you. I just didn't want to skip over you, that's all. Next question came from Rick Santos. How much does it cost? Guy cut to the chase. Rick, are you out there? All right, well, just to answer his question while he's, I've muted him back again, but long and short of it is basically it starts at about $10 a user for the PST eradication software. It's available to purchase in a one-time license methodology, or you can also purchase it in an ongoing, if it's something that you want to keep long-term, where there's the price, there's the annual maintenance, etc. So. Sam Woodard, your question, I'm unmuting you now. Sam Woodard, your question was, he said PST Enterprise was the only solution he's seen that works well for greater than 200 users. That's the question I saw in the chat window from you. Did you want to add any additional, or should I just say yes? Are you out there, Sam? All right. Well, like I said earlier in the discussion, primarily, and what I consider to be the remarkable difference when I use PST Enterprise to any of the other solutions that I've used, is the fact that I'm able to distribute the migration load, similar to what Ken was just talking about, where I use the resources that I have out there, the PCs, yeah, I can speak so well, the PCs that are out in the distributed environment. I use those as my migration stations without interfering with the day-to-day operations of the user, and I'm trickling or I'm replicating data in the background for PSTs that are those users, or any PSTs that ownership has been established based on the location of the PSTs, and I have the ability to do that in the background. I then also have the ability to relatively easily update the Outlook profile to not interfere with the end user's day-to-day operation. And finally, I have the ability to stop allowing people to create PSTs. So I think that's when I can make all of the work, okay, the work is moving the gazillions of email items, etc., out of C drives, F drive, wherever they are, into a manageable, searchable environment that's cost effective. My job, or the team's job that's going to find the PSTs, is to look at the PSTs that are found, develop business policies and apply them to them, and then go ahead but not have to sit there and babysit while 10 million gazillion items of mail get moved. So have a couple of other questions. Sam, I'm putting you back on mute. I hope I answered your question. Let's see. Back to the top. All right, where to go? I have Nicholas Santoli. I am unmuting you now, sir. You have your hand up. I can't seem to get you unmuted. Your question, does PST Eradication have built-in integration with Barracuda Archiver? The answer to that question is yes. Ken, would you like to add any additional color around PST Enterprise and Barracuda Archiver?
Yeah, so we've recently done some work. It's been this has been around for kind of 6 months now. We did some work to interface to Barracuda Message Archiver. So the free tool that you get with the Message Archiver to collect PSTs is typically good up to maybe 100 or so PSTs. But this is now there's a BMA, sorry, a Barracuda Message Archiver specific version of this tool. That when you're buying your message archiver, you can use that. You can buy this as an add-on, and it will. The only thing you can do with it is send the data to message archiver. But of course, that's in the full tool as well, right? If you wanted to do much more and send some of your content to the message archiver, delete some of the content, send some of it into your Office 365 mailbox, for example, then you'd look at the full tool, and that's got all the capabilities.
Thank you, Ken. With that being said, I don't have any other questions. If you have any questions, now's your time. Please click the little hand, but I'm not seeing anything else. So we're going to give you, figure 20 minutes or 18 minutes back to your day. Just to follow up, everyone who was registered or attended, will be receiving an email with a link for the presentation, and the piece. There's some information in here specifically as it relates to reviews, how it's done. There's demos and some other white papers, etc. These will all be made available to you. Contact information for myself and for Mr. Hughes from Barracuda is here. And with that, we're at about 2:45 this afternoon. I want to thank everybody for their time and attendance, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks very much.